Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the Hillwood Playground Renovation Community Meeting. My name is John Wilden, Project Manager with Montgomery Parks, and this evening we'll also be joined by my colleague, Kathy Deerstein. Before we get started, a few quick housekeeping notes. First, we are recording this presentation, and we'll be posting the link on our project website following the presentation so you can refer back to any information that's presented. Second, I want to direct your attention to the upper right of your screen where you'll see a question mark, and this is the Q&A box. This is where you can submit your questions or comments at any time throughout the presentation. We will set aside time at the end of today's session to address these questions. Additional comments can also be submitted on the project's Open Town Hall webpage, and there we have a community survey posted to solicit specific feedback. You may also contact me directly via email at john.wilden, W-H-I-L-D-E-N, at montgomeryparks.org or by phone at 301-495-3581. The goal of our meeting this evening is to inform the community about Montgomery County's playground program, present information specific to this project, provide an overview of playground equipment, but most importantly, to listen. At the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer session and address comments and listen to feedback. We want to know about your priorities for a safe and engaging play setting for the children of this community and how we can best accommodate those needs through this renovation project. To begin, I want to introduce my colleague, Kathy Deerstein, who will be discussing Montgomery County's playground renovation program.
Thank you, John. Good evening. I'm Kathleen Deerstein with Montgomery Parks. I am the project coordinator for the Playground Renovation Program. As John mentioned, I will be explaining how this program works. In order to design a playground, it's necessary to understand how important it is to a child. Play is a fundamental part of each child's world, enhancing cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development. Isn't just physical. Children learn through play. As Fred Rogers said, play gives children a chance to practice what they are learning. Play is perhaps the most influential catalyst for growth and learning during early childhood. The Department of Parks has 276 playgrounds countywide. Each is inspected monthly by a certified playground safety inspector for code compliance and routine maintenance. Repairs, if possible, are made at that time. Comprehensive playground renovations are made through the PLAR, Playground Renovation Capital Improvement Program, or as a part of an entire park renovation. Playgrounds in the current schedule for replacement are at the end of their life cycle. We estimate that the life cycle of a playground to be approximately 20 years. Average cost for local park playground replacements is $250,000. Current funding renovates 6 playgrounds per year, which puts them on a 46-year life cycle. There are 111 playgrounds in the system over 20 years old. When we prioritize our playground renovations, we consider the following criteria. The performance checklist. This is a numerical condition rating, which is filled out by the playground safety inspectors once a year. The age of the playground. 40% of our current playgrounds are beyond their life cycle for replacement. Is the equipment or decks made from treated wood? Prior to 2004, wood was commonly treated with a chemical preservative that is no longer used. We have prioritized removing this equipment from the park system, but in the interim, we have a program to seal the equipment annually to protect users. Has the playground equipment safety inspector recommended a higher priority for other reasons, such as have components or equipment been removed and replaced with a less dynamic activity, parts are no longer available or equipment has been removed from the playground over time and not replaced. Surfacing is hard to maintain. The playground's location within the park is poorly situated. We are also prioritizing playgrounds in lower income and ethnically diverse areas. There is no federal playground safety law, but most states have enforcement of playground safety criteria as a legal standard of care. As certified playground safety inspectors, we follow the guidelines set by the American Society for Testing and Materials International, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the International Playground Equipment Manufacturers Association. Once we know what the priorities are and that the funding is available, we set up a meeting to obtain the community's input for what they would like to see within their playground. A design is prepared based on the community needs and the standards of the department. The concept is shared with the community for final comment. After that, construction drawings are prepared, permits are secured, equipment is ordered, and the playground is constructed. John will now go over the Hillwood Manor project specifically.
Thank you, Kathy. I will begin by discussing some general information about the site and the project, including the scope and the project timeline. Then we'll discuss playgrounds and conclude with our question and answer session. Hillwood Manor Neighborhood Park is located on the eastern side of Montgomery County in Tacoma Park along Sligo Creek. A little bit of site history. Prior to 1995, Hillwood Manor and the surrounding area were part of Prince George's County, and on July 1st, 1997, following a vote, this area, including the park, was transferred to the jurisdiction of Montgomery County. The park is approximately 2 acres and includes an open field with picnic tables and a grill. The playground, which includes an area for swings and play equipment and a basketball court. The park is along Sligo Creek and can be accessed via the Sligo Creek Trail or from Elson Street. And please note that for this project, we will only be focusing on the area the playground currently exists, which is outlined in white on the map. During the design and construction processes, we will be taking environmental considerations into account. This map shows the area where we will be focusing, and that is adjacent to steep slopes along the bank of Sligo Creek. In addition, this area is partially within the stream buffer area. So we'll now go through a series of site images to show the existing conditions. This first image shows Sligo Creek Trail in the foreground, curving around towards the right to the bridge. To the left of the path leading to Elson Street, and in the background you can see the swing sets and a park signage. This image shows the swing sets and the path leading to Elson Street in the background. And something to note in this image, there's currently no accessible route from the path to the swing set area. And so ensuring access will be a fundamental part of this project. This image shows the existing play equipment, which is partially constructed with wood and requires frequent maintenance. This is another view of the existing play equipment with the open field in the background. This image shows the space between the 2 play areas, with the play equipment to the left and the swings to the right. In the background, you can see a park bench. This image also shows one of the great assets of the park, which are these large trees, which provide ample shade during the summer months. The scope of this project will include new play equipment, seating for parents and caregivers, updated ADA accessibility and access, and improved stormwater management. The general timeline of the project is as follows. We will be developing design concepts this summer based on your feedback from today and in the coming weeks. We will then be posting our concepts on the project's open town hall page for review and comment this fall. In addition, community members can also reach out directly by sending me an email or by calling. And this winter and into spring 2021, we will be finalizing our concepts and drafting construction documents. And we'll plan to go into construction summer 2021. So we'll now transition to discussing playgrounds. Typical components of a playground include protective surfacing in the event of a fall, edging around the surfacing and play equipment, under drainage to prevent water from saturating the surface, and stormwater management. Paved pedestrian and accessible routes, including ADA and universal access. Separate activities for children 2 to 5 and 5 to 12. And these age groups are based on childhood development studies and consumer safety standards. A mix of activities such as active, imaginary, and social play. Seating for caregivers and parents, and maintenance access. So we'll now walk through some examples of play equipment broken down by the two age groups, ages 2 to 5 and 5 to 12. And please note that as we're walking through these examples, this is not the specific equipment that we will be placing at the site. Rather, the intention of this is to provide an overview of equipment the manufacturers are producing these days. And the intention is also to help you generate some thoughts and ideas of what you may want to see installed at the park. So examples of equipment for 2 to 5-year-olds include enclosed swings, simple slides, crawl tubes, balancing activities, multi-spring toys, spinning activities, jumping, bouncing, easy climbers, simple bridges, and interactive and imaginary play. This image shows two updated classic pieces of playground equipment. On the top left, a toddler swing with an attachment that's suitable for older children or adults. And on the bottom left is a typical slide with updated colors. On the right is a set of low climbing and balancing equipment. These are also images of updated traditional playground equipment. On the top left, an example of an interactive play piece. On the bottom left, a dragonfly themed seesaw, and on the right, 2 spring bouncers. The piece in the foreground is kind of a modern take on a merry-go-round, and it can be used both as an interactive and a social piece for young children. The pieces of equipment on top are examples of standalone themed equipment for imaginative play. And on the bottom are 2 examples of more modern play systems. These are 4 play systems for younger children, each with a different form and emphasis on activity. The one on the top left has a themed element with a frog that doubles as a climber and access to the slide. On the bottom left is a piece that focuses on low climbing and movement. On the top right, the play equipment has a more abstract shape with brighter colors, and on the bottom right, the equipment is more angular in its shape. And as a side note, while you're thinking about specific elements or pieces of equipment, also consider any preferences you have for colors. The new playground will be placed at a site with a lot of trees and dark natural colors, so please keep that in mind as you're getting your feedback to us. So the equipment here in the foreground is an example from Hunter's Wood Playground, showing the simple slide, tower, and rock climbers. And in the background is the older children's playground. This is an example of climbers, and on the top left, or excuse me, on the left and top right, these rope climbers allow kids to climb their way up into the playground tower. And on the bottom right, these are geometric cubes that enable kids to crawl through and climb up. For the older children, ages 5 to 12, playground equipment examples include swings, challenging slides, chain or cable walks, freestanding climbers, towers, horizontal climbers, parallel bars, track rides, vertical sliding poles, and spinning activities. Here are 2 examples of standalone pieces that actually serve both age groups. The image on top is a modern take on a tire swing that can accommodate multiple generations of playground visitors. And on the bottom is a modern spinner that enables interactive and social play. And in the background is an example of a standalone climber with elements for various age groups. So here are examples of climbers. In the foreground, a piece with a larger standing area versus the freestanding rope tower in the background. This is an example of a play system that has angular support features and is very open with a lot of visibility. Here's an example of a climbing tower, which includes shade structures above and slides of various heights. This is a play system with various climbing elements on the left and a climbing tower on the right. Here's an example of a playground system that integrates the young and older children's equipment. This has various climbing and balancing elements of varying degrees and has a forest theme. This is a playground example from Battery Lane Park in Bethesda. So we'll now move into the discussion portion of the presentation. As I mentioned at the beginning, we will have an open town hall page so you can provide your feedback and comments. And this page can be found on our project website, and we will also share the link through the comments section. The open town hall page includes a variety of multiple choice, open-ended, and preference questions. And these questions below are examples of feedback that will be helpful for us to understand as we develop our concepts for the site. So, what are your priorities for activities and types of equipment? Are there other playgrounds that have equipment or features that you or your children find interesting? What color schemes do you prefer for the new equipment? And are there themes that are of interest to you? The next steps in the project are to collect your feedback from this evening and over the next few weeks. Use your feedback to develop site concepts, and then post those concepts on our open town hall page this fall for additional feedback. At the top is our project website, where you can find all the information related to the project, and this includes this recorded meeting, project schedule, and any updates, and the link to the open town hall page. If you like, I am available for questions and comments if you would like to reach out directly. Email is the best way to contact me, as I am working remotely, but you are welcome to call my direct line, though there will be a delay in my returning your message. My direct line is 301-495-3581. And for questions or comments related specifically to park maintenance, please contact Mohammed Touré. His email is Mohammed, MOHAMMAD .Touré, TURAY, @montgomeryparks.org, or you can call directly at 301-650-2629. So now I'd like to open up the discussion to all of you watching this presentation and introduce Patricia McManus, who will be moderating our Q&A session.
Thank you, John. I'm Tricia McManus, the Design Section Supervisor for Montgomery County Department of Parks. And I want to thank you for joining us for this meeting, and I've been monitoring the questions as they've been coming through. And there are not a lot of questions, but I did want to start by recognizing we do have a special guest with us tonight. We have City of Tacoma Park Council member Talisha Searcy, who's with us. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate your being here. And we just have a few questions. I guess they're coming through now, so I'm publishing them as I see them. But I'd like to go through just a few that have come through. There was just a couple of notes here that the name of the street in front of the park is 13th Avenue, not Elson Street. And we are aware of that. It's just the address of the park is on Elson Street. And there's a comment here also, someone who liked the Battery Lane equipment. And then we have a question from Councilmember Searcy about the basketball area and whether that's included within the scope of the park renovation. And that's not, it's just the playground area. And then one other comment that's just come in, I just published here, is if we're sending out another email to the community, to please highlight the survey where people can submit their comments. So actually, I think we did post the link to that in the Q&A, and we will make sure that that's clear on our website. I see there's a bunch of them coming in now, so let me just publish these, and then I may direct some of these questions to John and Kathy so they can be answering while I'm making sure we get them all here. So let me just publish these questions so that everybody can see them. And then let's go through and answer them. So, here's a question I'd like to direct to John because it's specific about the playground design. There's a question is, could there be a table as well as seating for caregivers, as different groups at times offer programs that would be helpful to have a table?
Thank you for the question. We will absolutely consider that in our feedback, and the types of equipment and amenities at the park will be based on your feedback, and so we will absolutely take that into consideration. And thank you for your comment.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure I get all the questions, so it's taking me a little minute here. They're coming in quickly. So can we get colors that blend with the natural environment of the park and the creek, such as greens, browns, and blues? So John, could you address that?
Certainly. So there are types of equipment, as I've shown in some of the examples, they come in a variety of colors. And so, yeah, we want to know what types of colors you want. Do they sit in opposition and in high contrast to the site? And it's nice to know that you would like something that kind of blends into the site. So we will make sure your comment is heard, and as we move forward. Thank you.
Here's one from a preschool teacher and parent of a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old, and understand that wood is harder to maintain, but natural components are beneficial to children. So we're showing a lot of plastic and metal components, and what can we do to add natural elements to the playground? And maybe Kathy and John both could address that. Maybe start with Kathy.
Sure. And if you saw the slide where John was showing you the trees in the middle of the two existing playgrounds, we were just discussing this yesterday, that we can hopefully incorporate that area to be more natural and maintained because of the trees. It'd be a shame to lose them after we've worked so hard to preserve them. So we can certainly look at some natural components or natural elements in using them in the playground. Well, I just had a thought that just went out of my head, so it probably wasn't that important, but in our playgrounds, we have to follow a lot of guidelines, and I don't know if you're thinking that you would like some loose logs or rocks that the kids can manipulate, and we just don't do that because we don't know how the people will be using it at different times, or it's not supervised, so we worry about that. But we'll try. I mean, there's, there might be something out there where we can look at and incorporate into this playground.
Well, actually, Kathy, there have been a number of other comments that people are interested in natural elements, like maybe rocks or natural elements. And I think we have done that in playgrounds. And if that's something people are interested in, we sometimes create, separate from the formal playground itself, we could potentially do a natural area with some nature play elements on the side. So I think that's certainly something we could incorporate into this project, and it appears that there's quite a bit of interest on that. There's multiple comments that people are interested in that are coming through here. So we could certainly take a look at that. I don't know if John wants to add anything to that, but that's something we'd be glad to take a look at. We also have a question on what kind of surfacing would be used. So if Kathy, would you like to address that?
Sure. Most playgrounds in Montgomery County, over 90% of our 276 playgrounds, utilize engineered wood fiber, and we plan to use it for this playground.
Okay, thanks. And there are a couple questions. Maybe I'm going to load a couple of questions at you guys while I'm publishing all the ones that are frantically coming in. So there's, and I don't want to lose them, so I'm going to try going in order. But there's a comment here that people are really interested in ensuring the playground blends with the natural park area. And then there is also a question right now that, or I'm going to hear two questions here, and maybe Kathy can start and John can add to it. But it's saying, one question saying right now the playground is split over two areas, the swings and the playground with grass in between. And are we going to keep those areas separate? And then a second question about the budget. What's the budget for the project and how will that affect the equipment choices? So,
well, John, I will take the budget one, and you can have the area in the middle. That'll be your design decision. The budget for this project is approximately $250,000, and that includes not only the equipment, but the surfacing, the installation, stormwater management, and access to the playground. And it would affect the equipment, but we have a good relationship with most of the vendors, and we've been able to get some pretty good discounts. So you're going to get a lot of great choices down there.
John, do you want to add?
Certainly, yeah. So I'll address the second question about the two different play spaces. As I mentioned in the presentation, I think one of the great assets of the site are these trees, and it's setting next to the creek. And so I think what I think would be great is to somehow utilize that space that incorporates the natural elements and can kind of join the two play spaces into one and use that connection as a play element itself. And thank you for your question.
Okay, there are multiple questions about inclusion and how we could design this to promote inclusion for all kids and also specifically for kids with autism. So do the two of you have thoughts on how to create an inclusive playground and how we could do that? And I think we'd love to hear, any ideas the community has on that specifically, but in general, I think we would of course want to make this an inclusive playground. And Kathy, if you have thoughts on that, of what we've done on other projects, you could perhaps, provide
we
some input.
certainly will do everything we can to make it inclusive. And if there is children in the neighborhood who have a specific need, we would love to hear what the parent would like to see, because you do a lot of reading and research on what would make a good inclusive playground. But in my seeing what the manufacturers produce, it's just to check off a box. And I would really rather prefer having someone who has a direct connection there that can help us improve our playgrounds.
Okay, there's a question here about, will the footprint of the playground remain the same? And especially that the field is very important to keep. So John, could you address that?
Yes. The open field is not part of this project. That will remain as is. And so the footprint of the existing playground will remain relatively the same. It's not going to expand into the field or up to the street or over to the basketball court. It will remain generally where it is right now.
Okay, and then there's questions about, again, about rocks and natural elements, or comments about that, and perhaps a question whether a large rope climbing structure could work as a natural element. Kathy, do you have thoughts on that?
I'm sure, especially if we have ideas to have, one of the questions is saying, how about a tree fort? That could incorporate a climbing structure. And it just seems like there are a lot of questions stressing the natural elements in the playground. So we'll definitely look at that. But, and then there was a question about, will children be surveyed? Well, I would hope that if you go to town hall and fill out our survey, you will include the, your children in that to give us a better idea of what you all would like to see. Yeah, remember, it's your playground, it's not ours, and you have to use it. So we're going to try our best to give you what you'd like to see. We can't supply everything, but we'll get it as close to something that you'll just be attracted to.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on that, there are a lot of comments here about natural play, and maybe we rethink what we might be doing with this space. So if natural play is, something that's really a priority here, we could take a different approach to this playground than we might otherwise. So that is something we can certainly take a look at. And there's definitely a lot of comments people are making about that. There's also some questions about stormwater management. And John, do you want to address that? There's an adjacent, or Kathy too, as well as what we're going to do for the playground, as well as what might be happening in the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay, it's our understanding that stormwater management improvements are planned on 13th Avenue by the city of Tacoma Park, and that's in their capital improvements program. So that would be, we're hoping to work with the city to facilitate that. And the point of contact with that project is Daryl Braithwaite, who's the public works director in Tacoma Park. And but with the playground specifically, we'll be putting increased drainage underneath the playground. I would bet that playground right now doesn't have any piping or drainage to drain the excess water off of the playground when it rains. So that'll be improved so that it'll dry faster. And the engineered wood fiber won't break down as quickly.
Okay, there's a question here about whether it's possible we could put some adult fitness equipment in with the playground as well. And I think that's something we could definitely take a look at. There's additional comments about, there's a question about whether we would be doing anything with a basketball court, and that, you know, there would be a preference for a tennis court instead. Kathy, could you address that?
I'm sorry, Trish, I'm reading ahead.
Well, okay, I'm publishing some additional ones, so I'm trying to get them all up. Let's see.
I was reading about the fitness area, but then there was one about fences too. And again, it all comes into what we can fit in there. And that's why we encourage you to give us all your suggestions and ideas on the town hall, because it's going to help us to get a better playground. Okay, Trish, what was the thing about basketballs? I'm sorry.
Oh, well, would we be addressing the basketball court? And I think that answer is this project is pretty much limited to the playground. So
it's just playground.
Yeah, we don't have the funding to be able to, you know, renovate other areas of the park. So that is the answer to that. Although, you know, it's possible we could get some fitness equipment in. That's not expensive, you know, as part of the playground.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some ideas here about an idea from a neighborhood kid with autism would be like a enclosed area with things to touch. That'd be a great idea. We could incorporate.
Right.
And also a question, could we have a physical charrette at some point in the process so families could weigh in? There's a lot of Latinx families who may not be comfortable with online processes. So seeing small scale representations is helpful, and it helped for the Hillwood Manor community garden. I think that's something, you know, we would have to consider, you know, at some point. I know we're all, you know, isolated and working at home at this point, but maybe there's some way we could, I'm not sure, you know, what the answer would be at this point, whether we could do something in the park, you know, out in the open air, maybe we could, but that's something we could look into, because we certainly don't want to exclude anyone by, you know, the manner of public outreach that we're doing, you know, right now through the, you know, through technology. So we definitely want to get as much input and broadly across the board as we can. So that's something we can think about. And then there's a question about can we have sturdy and attractive trash and recycling receptacles, and if they're not receptacles out there, we can certainly make sure that they are added, you know, working with the park manager on that. And some other questions again about the field. Yes, we are going to keep the field as it is. And then so here's some other, you know, ideas about sources for nature play ideas. And then additional comments coming in about, you know, equipment for kids over 12 or adults would be great. Kathy, do you have some thoughts on, we've done a little bit of that, but maybe not as much as we could. Do you have thoughts about some of that newer equipment that's coming in for teens?
If that's a priority for the neighborhood, we can certainly look into it. It's just that it's been our experience that about the age of 10, kids are starting to go over to that basketball court instead. So if, exercise equipment would draw them in, and if it's something that, would be used, we could include it.
Okay. There's also some questions about, will the fence surrounding the playground be redone as part of the project? I didn't realize there was a fence here. Is there a fence in the park?
I think it's just on one end. Most of the playground is open.
Okay, and I mean, if there's a fence, if we, are thinking we need a fence to separate from the roadway, that's what it sounds like it is.
I think it's by the, I'm sorry, Trish. I think it's by the creek, on the creek side.
Okay. Well, if we were redoing the playground, we would replace any fencing. I mean, we typically don't fence our playgrounds, but if we need to have fence for safety, either if we're close to the road or we're right near the stream, we may provide some fencing, and that would be part of the project. And then some additional comments here about setting up a table in the park to gather input. That would be, and they have neighborhood volunteers who are multilingual. That would be a great idea, I think. And we would just have to work how we could do it. But I think that would be, having, maybe when we do have our concept plans, we can present them in the park or post them in the park and get input in the park. So we'll look at ways we can get people out and get, more input and get involvement from the entire community. There's another question, the estimated timeline for completion. John, do you want to address that one?
Sure. Yeah, so we'll be developing concepts until this fall. We'll be posting that. And then we'll kind of go through another feedback loop with the community and hopefully go into construction summer 2021.
Okay, and here's a question about, would it be possible to provide more separation from the trail that runs beside the park and over the bridge, that there's points of conflict, and could the space be made a little bit wider and more of a clear path for the cyclists or runners? And that's something we can certainly look at in the layout of the playground. And then a question about, again, equipment for older kids, perhaps a climbing wall, that might be something we could incorporate. And then some clarifications about the fence. And then let's see, there's two more, or a few more new comments that are coming in. Let me just post those. And we have a climbing rope structure would be a good idea, and that would be something that could work. And then, yeah, another comment about the shape of the fencing is in pretty poor shape. So yes, we can definitely take a look at that. So this is great. Thank you so much for shooting all these questions our way. When we started, I was afraid there were going to be no questions, and I'm so glad that people are participating and we have really good input here. We do have another comment that just came through about the Hillwood Manor Community Garden team can be tapped to identify multilingual volunteers to gather input. That would be awesome. And someone gave us their contact information to help us. So that would be really great. And then
I'm glad, Trish, I'm glad Lydia Johnson clarified what the fence was, because I wouldn't consider that a fence. She's right. It's more like a hitching post for your horse. But we'll look at all of these suggestions.
Okay, and then there's the last question so far, unless more come in, is when will the current playground be open again? And if anyone knows. So that's sort of a question. Well, Kathy, you're on sort of our reopening team for playgrounds.
I am, and I would say the rate we're going, opening up the fields and everything, it would be probably mid-July. It'd be another couple weeks. It's phase 3, whenever phase 3 is. The problem we have right now is our staff is only working half-time. So it's getting the necessary staff back to inspect and take the fences down. And they're not just doing this one, they're doing 276 of them. So it's probably going to be a phasing thing. But we're just as anxious as you are to get our parks up and running again.
Yeah, that's it. And that is true. I mean, our operations staff is really stretched right now. They need to be social distancing, like even when they're driving in their trucks. And so the crew size are knocked down, and they're alternating days, but the work hasn't gotten any less. So they are trying to keep up with everything. So there is a whole committee that's working on how we can reopen the facilities. So that's something we don't have a clear answer to, other than we think it will be coming pretty soon, you know, as other facilities are starting to open up. But we'll certainly, you know, that information, any new updates will be posted on the main parks webpage. I think we have a COVID-19 link that gives all the updates related to what's going on in the parks.
Yeah,
and I do see one comment about there's many preschool age kids in the neighborhood, as well as elementary school ages, and the preschooler requested a high climbing thing and rungs to jump through. So that's a great comment.
Yes, and I agree with them. You need those high climbing things.
So if anyone else has any questions, you know, if there's anything else we haven't addressed, feel free to take a last minute or two and push any questions through. But we are going to keep a transcript of all the comments that we got tonight from the Q&A, as well as the open town hall is going to have a survey on it that John showed you a few of the questions, but there will be more opportunities there for questions and comments. So we want to collect as much feedback as we can get initially before we start developing some concepts. So please, you know, forward the link to the open town hall to your neighbors and to your friends, and, you know, and to your kids, have as many people as would like to comment, or there's multiple choice questions as well as open-ended questions. So we just want as much feedback on what you'd like to see in the playground. And we got a good direction here tonight. We got a lot of great comments about, you know, natural play elements and specific ideas about types of equipment. So keep it coming. And it's so great to have a really engaged group of people, because we don't always get a really excited group, and you seem like you're really interested and participating. And I think the idea
gives us direction.
Yeah, and I think getting the feedback on site, we'll have to work how we can do that, but I think that's a great idea too. So, you know, so there will be plenty of opportunities as we move through the project, you know, to provide additional information. And feel free to contact John directly, as well as, you know, giving us comments through the open town hall. And but so if there's nothing else, I don't see anything new coming through. I'd like to just recognize a few staff who have been helping us with this meeting behind the scenes. This is, you know, the first time we've done this kind of a meeting in parks, in the Park Development Division, and we certainly couldn't have done it without a lot of help. So I did want to thank from our technology division, Shannon Olson and Dominique Neem, who trained us and helped us get this meeting up and running properly. And then from our public affairs office, we have Aaron Pant, Alex Gear, and Melissa Chotner. They're actually on the call now producing this event. So they've been managing the phone lines and the camera, and they've been acting as our backup in case, you know, anything went awry. So I just want to thank them, and also really thank you for joining us. This has been really much better, a really much better meeting than I expected. Oh, and here's one more comment that's just come through about the community garden has worked, they've worked extensively with Mo, who's our park manager. So, so we look forward to continuing to work with all of you. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you also, Councilmember Searcy, for being here. That's really great to have elected officials involved in our projects as well. So thank you all again, and I'll turn it back to John to add some closing remarks and close the meeting.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. You know, again, it's great to see such an engaged community, and encourage you to reach out directly if you have questions, and continue to talk to your neighbors and your friends, and go to the open town hall page and give us your feedback, and help us serve you as best we can for this playground in the neighborhood. So again, thank you, and hope everyone has a great evening.
Great.
Thanks so much.